like we've been doing pretty much since the playoffs started. Having fun with NASCAR this week. Obviously, we were in Vegas. Kind of a normal race to begin with, but then when a restart kind of changed everything from what I saw. With was it Bell that flipped? Am I remember that correctly? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Reddick. Sorry, yes.
Reddick flipped.
Yeah, no. Bell led
Elliott.
most of the race. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Bell led most of the race, and then the ending, of course, we'll talk about in a little bit. But besides those couple things, Phil, what did you kind of see overall from the race in Vegas?
Yeah, like you said, it started out like a pretty normal race, and then they got, the restarts were crazy. They were 3-4 wide coming, going through the corners. But then they come off 4, and Tyler Reddick tried to put his nose in third lane coming off turn 4, and Elliott basically, the spotter must have told him clear.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear. And they started all pile up on the front straightaway, about 5-6 cars, and Reddick ended up flipping an entire rotation upside down and came back on his lid and actually drove it to pit road, and they tried to fix the car after he flipped.
Oh, geez.
Which I thought was pretty impressive. But
well, yeah, I mean, you're obviously going to have to at that point. You're going for a champion. I mean, if they were out of the championship, then they'd probably have wrapped it up. But the fact that you're still in it, you might as well try. You got to go try to get the points if you can get anything.
Yeah, but he had broken suspension parts, so he really couldn't continue. But
sure,
he made it back to the pit box and was just fine. It was just a typical flip. So
wow.
these cars seem to like to flip on these speedways now. I don't know what's going on. They put a lot of effort into trying not to flip, and somehow they are continuing to flip.
Wasn't that the idea of a restrictor plate, or am I thinking of that wrong?
Yeah, no, the restrictor plate slow the engine down so you don't go like 200 miles an hour, so to speak. Maybe not that fast, but to keep it at reasonable speed so it's not dangerous to the fans. And like I mentioned in the podcast, car flew into the grandstands that hurt a couple years ago, and they wanted to slow them down on the bigger tracks.
Yeah, so that makes it interesting because obviously Logano, you can explain how he won. I did not watch the race. I know it was kind of a wild finish, but he won, which now has guaranteed him a Final Four spot into Phoenix. So that's obviously massive for him. I want to hear from you, Phil, because again, I didn't really watch the race, so I'm curious how Logano, how he did that. What was so kind of surprising about his finish?
I don't know the exact amount of laps to go.
It was 35. He was 35 laps ahead, or he did it early, is what I looked up. Yeah.
Basically, what happened is Joey Logano. What happens is when you're let's just play an example here. So I'm in first place and I'm ahead by 5 seconds on the second place guy. And if the first place guy decides he wants to come in and get tires so he can go faster the remaining laps, he's going to come to pit road, and the guy that's 5 seconds behind is going to take the lead, and he's probably going to be out by almost a lap. Well, it turned out Christopher Bell was about 35 to go, like you said, was about a lap behind and was approximately gaining about a second a lap on Logano as the leader.
Sure.
And it turns out that the laps just kept going by and by. He's going through traffic. It slowed him down. He was unable to ever catch Logano, and Logano was actually able to win the race on one less pit stop than what Christopher Bell did. Christopher Bell, like I said, came in to get tires, and Logano just stayed out on the fuel mileage and saved as much fuel as he can to make it to the end. I think he said he was like one lap short at one point.
Dang.
So he was able to save about a lap's worth of fuel. And he just stayed out there. He never came to pit road, never came to get the tires, and was able to hold off Bell. And Bell was like 1 second behind at the finish and finished in second place. So
dang, yeah,
pretty incredible.
That's impressive.
That's a gutsy call.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially because he could have not finished.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you could get down to 2 laps and, like you said, be out of gas or have some sort of tire issue or whatever could have happened to where now you're completely out of the race. I mean, obviously you look at it now and go, what a move, but you could be looking at it today as well and going, what an idiot. The guy, he should have just pitted, and that would have saved his whole race.
He really, really slowed down there at the end trying to save fuel because he knew he was really slow. But then with about 10 laps to go, his crew chief came on the radio and said, hey, go ahead and go. We think you're good to go. And he stepped it up there. I think that was the difference in holding him off and not holding him off. If he would have let him stay in fuel conservation mode the whole time, I think Bell would have easily passed him.
Probably.
Yeah, and I think that's something that the average, like someone that will just turn on NASCAR doesn't see. And so it's kind of cool for that to happen in this big of a race in the playoffs, just because it'll get a little bit more attention than if that happens just during the regular season.
Totally.
And so people realize that it's not just, I mean, racing a car is hard, but people don't see it that way. But there's also a lot of strategy that goes into it.
Sure.
And something like that is easy enough to understand too. So it's cool to see. But
yeah, it is definitely, that's a good point too, I think, because it is easy to understand, like, yeah, he just slowed down to try to save fuel because he didn't want to pit. The strategy to the common person, I mean, because everyone drives a car, everyone kind of understands the basic knowledge of how gas works and consumption works and, you know, all that it does make sense to the average person, but it's also like not everyone's going to be able to do this, and not everyone's going to be able to do the math like a crew chief where he goes, you have X amount of fuel in here. We believe that is about enough, if not just enough, to finish this race full speed like we can go. So pretty crazy.
And this would have worked if the caution came out. The caution came out, Logano would have been.
Oh, sure.
I see.
Which is interesting. So, okay, I have a question then for that. Does Christopher Bell, I don't know who he drives for, does he have teammates?
Yes, he has 3 teammates.
So,
Ty, Denny Hamlin.
Okay.
So would you have been shocked if you would have seen someone be like Denny Hamlin or Ty Gibbs, like you hear on their radio, like, hey, just go wreck someone, get the caution out? Would that be a shock, or would that, I mean, obviously, yeah, a little dirty, but like, hey, you know, Christopher Bell's trying to win and try to get Joey out of it. Is that something that happens normally, or is that completely?
No, it's not normal. I mean, people wrecking each other on purpose, not supposed to happen. So you get in big trouble for stuff like that. You get suspended for things like that. So no, it's not normal. Now there is cases where, like, if the leader's trying to get by a lap car,
like hold
and
somebody up,
is the teammate of the second place car, and they're trying to hold the leader up. Now that's very real. They do that all the time.
Yeah.
But not in this case. No, I really believe that. I believe it was 26 seconds when he came off pit road. He was 26 seconds behind, which was a lap time was around 30 seconds. So
wow. Yeah,
an entire lap. So he was almost an entire lap behind when he came off. And they ran, I think, the last like 70 couple laps under green, and the whole field run.
I told him not to call me.
Definitely wouldn't have happened if the caution came out, for sure.
Yeah, dang, that's
crazy. Yeah, that is wild. Like I said, it's just a gutsy call.
Well, especially because if they still made that call, and then, like you said, if there's a caution, he's not even going to finish even close to where he obviously won the race.
He would have been. He might be in the bottom on the bubble in the bottom 4 if he doesn't. You know, if this doesn't work out.
So with our picks, I picked Busch. So not the best pick from this race. You had Elliott, but he got wrecked, so I kind of messed up there. And then who did you pick, Phil? Do you remember from last week?
I had Denny Hamlin.
You did.
You said Hamlin.
Man, he's just not running. He's not running where he needs to be. I don't know what's going on, but there's no way that you can't convince me that Christopher Bell, his teammate, is running that much better than he is.
Sure, that's fair.
Although I will say Denny Hamlin's pit crew did not help him at all.
I heard about that, actually.
They're not helping him at all by any means. So yeah, it's tough to watch, man.
Isn't it not uncommon for pit crews to switch too, like between teams, if not necessarily a certain driver, but
yeah, I remember Jimmy Johnson's crew one year got changed out with I believe Jeff Gordon's in the playoffs. They were both playoff drivers and they switched anyway. So it's been happened before, even on the best of teams.
Well, cool. Well, I mean, it's for the most
part. That is pretty
part
crazy. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it sounds like it was definitely a good race. Some exciting strategy moves, and then the giraffe won. Caleb Waltney, that's for you.
Oh, gosh.
Thanks for listening to the Kinda Athletic podcast. Please like and subscribe to all our social media platforms, and make sure to come back next week to hear more from the Kinda Athletic podcast.